Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Body Language. Tonight you're going to learn some things about yourself that you probably never ever considered. You'll learn some things about your friends, your relatives, your co-workers, your neighbours, and even your boss that you never ever knew existed. Things you might have seen over the years but never knew what they meant. And we're going to show you some ways that you can work out what somebody's really thinking regardless of what they say to you, as we look into this world of body language, this world of silent command. So I guess the first question should be, what's your body language like? Did you notice how many people had their arms crossed when the cameras and lights went on? Let's have a look around. How many people have got their arms crossed right now? Now, when I first walked in and the lights went on, most people thought, what's going to happen? Is he going to ask me a question? Is he likely to get me up there for a demonstration? This is what we call a negative defensive gesture. Now, most body language is so ingrained that most people can't unlearn it. Let me show you what I mean. Can I ask everybody to cross your arms? Now, 7 out of 10 Australians cross left over right. Have a look at yours. Now, so ingrained is body language, you know it's practically impossible for you to unlearn that gesture. Try now to cross your arms around the other way. See how you go. Most people can't even uncross them the other way. Now, the problem with this gesture... Now, can you please uncross your arms? Oh, good. The problem with this gesture is that the research shows that if I'm speaking with you and I cross my arms, that my receptiveness to what you're saying goes down by up to 40%. And that most of the statements that I will make to you will be negative. So does that mean then, the girl at the bus stop at the introduction who had her arms crossed, does that mean she was negative? What do you think? No, she was cold because she was standing in a cold situation. One of the biggest mistakes that people make with body language is to try and take one gesture and try and put a meaning on it. Now, body language is like any language. There's words, sentences, phrases, and punctuation. You've got to take a series of words to get a full understanding as to what each individual word means. And with body language, it's the same. We've got to take what we call clusters of gestures, so that when you see them happen, they'll come in such a predictable sequence that you'll get a feeling that the person may not be telling you the truth. For example, if you ask me a question, as I respond to your question, I begin to rub my nose. What do you think that could mean? Well, it could mean I'm telling lies. Anything else? Itchy nose. What else? I could be stalling for time, yes. Anything else? No, I haven't got a cold. No. I had a cold that looked like this under the wrist. What you said correctly is that one gesture can mean perhaps a dozen different things, just like one word can mean many different things. It could mean that I'm telling you a lie when it's put into a cluster. For example, if somebody's telling a lie, this is one of the gestures that they will use. Other gestures include, if I'm going to tell you a big lie, there's a good chance I'll rub my eye and look at the ground. For example, sounds like a great idea to me, John. You can certainly count on my support. Another gesture that I might use, if I'm telling you a lie and I suddenly think that you suspect that as you found me out, here's one of the gestures you'll see. For example, I posted that check on Thursday. So when it comes in a sequence, if you ask me how I felt about your presentation or what you're saying, and I said I think it's a great idea, I think you've done a terrific job and you've got a tremendous future, you may not believe me, is that right? Okay. The question that people ask a lot is, what is the origin of body language? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from a number of different sources. For example, we cross our arms because it's basic body protection. It protects our heart and lungs area. There are gestures such as this one here that we call the OK gesture. Now, this has its origin in an American presidential campaign in the 1820s. And OK was the initials of the candidate. And he started a trend that said you're OK with OK. Now, he didn't win, but that initial has stuck with us, and today in this country we use that for O. This gesture here means what to you? Yeah, that's OK, she's all right. It goes back to the days of the Roman gladiators. They'd be fighting in the ring. The winner would hold the sword over the head of the loser and look to the crowd for guidance. If the crowd did that, they meant hold the sword up, he's okay. And they spared him. Yet there's other gestures such as smiling, for example. Why do we smile? Now, smiling has its origin in fear. When two monkeys would meet, they would draw the lips back like that, each showing that the other was fearful of the other. Therefore, each was subordinate and non-threatening. Make sense? Now, modern man does the same thing. If I meet you, I will smile. So therefore, you'll interpret me as non-threatening and find me acceptable. What happens if I meet you and I don't smile? You're what? Suspicious? What about this gesture? Yes. That's a yes gesture. Is that used as yes throughout the world? No. No, it's not. You know what the origin of this is for yes? No. No, you don't. Its origin is in bowing. That is, if I'm subordinate to you, I will bow, correct? The more subordinate I am, the lower I will bow in relation to you. Hat tipping is another version of making myself smaller to be subordinate, and that's the origin, of course, of saluting. It's a symbolic hat tip. So, if I agree with you as we speak, my head makes this movement, correct? So it's a stunted bowing movement. Because it's a bowing movement, I'm subordinate to you. Because I'm subordinate to you, I will go along with whatever you want, so we use it as affirmation. What does this gesture mean? That's negative. This is the first gesture that every human being learns. When you're born, you put on the breast to drink. When the baby's had sufficient milk, what movement does it make with its head? It makes this gesture, so it rejects the food. Now, any child you try to feed it, what happens? Look at the screen, we'll see what happened to baby Paul. Now, here's mum trying to feed him. He doesn't want to know. So very quickly, we all learn that shaking our head from side to side is no. Let me give you the words and tone of voice that match those gestures. If I... What's your name, sir?
Peter.
Peter. Let's say, for example, that I like what Peter said, and I agree. Which way does my head move if I like him? And I agree. Up and down, without even thinking. It looks like this. Peter, yes, I think that's a tremendous idea. You're on the right track, and you can count on my support. The gesture confirmed the tone of voice and the words. Is this correct?
Yes.
If I didn't like Peter, didn't like what he had to say, which way would my head go without even thinking? Peter, I mean, you've got to be kidding. I mean, there is no way in no that that's going to get off the ground. I will not help you. Now, in real life, it doesn't happen that way. You know why? Because when I was a kid, I was taught not to tell lies on one hand. On the other hand, I was taught to be a prolific liar when Mum taught me to be polite. Polite means tell lies. Now, I haven't got the heart to tell Peter I don't like what he's presenting because he's my friend, or he's my boss, or he's my neighbour, he's my uncle. So I better be polite. Here's how it looks if I try to be polite and cover up. Peter, I think that's a great idea. It's got tremendous potential. It really has. You can certainly count on my support. Now, it only looks funny because we looked at the two most basic elements of movement. We analysed their backgrounds. I gave you the words and tone of voice that matched. Now you're noticing that the gesture is completely contradicting the words. Now, fellas, how many times have you been at a party and you've said to a lady something really cool like, how about coming up to my place for a cup of coffee? And she said, I'm not like that at all. How many times have you missed that? Of course I'll respect you in the morning. Of course. Now, if height gives positiveness and lowering is subordinate, does it follow then that tall people must be more influential than short people? Well, who believes that tall people give greater power and more influence than short people? Hold your hand up. Who believes that tall people do not exert more influence than short people? All the short people. You don't believe that, sir? Can I have you at the front here, please? And come on out here. Come on. Okay, come on out here. What's your name?
Bob.
Please give Bob a big welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Bob says he doesn't believe that tall people exert more pressure than short people. Now, Bob's taller than me. If this is correct, he should be exerting influence over me right now, correct? Let's put it to the test. Okay, this is your microphone, Rob. Just hold it right there. You got it? Now, here's the scene. You've delegated a task to me, and I've ruined the task. And you're about to really let me have it and tell me off. Now, not yet, not yet, not yet. To make this work, what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay on the floor. Here I go. And just stay right there. Would you agree that in this position, I'm about as low as I can be in relation to God? Now, he's about as tall as he can be. Now, with a pointed finger, you tell me what a fool I am and tell me where to get off. Let me have it.
You idiot! You buggered up that job. You know anything about body language?
Let me have it.
You're a real numbskull. Me then.
Okay, right.
Why don't you get up off the floor?
Now, he had no difficulty in telling me off. He had the maximum height advantage, and I was at the minimum. Now, would you agree that he could do that really easily then? Yes. Okay. Would you mind laying on the floor? Go down there this time. Let's reverse the role and see how he does. Now, Bob is as low as he can be in relation to me, and I have the maximum height advantage. Now, what I want you to do now is to give me the same treatment. Let's see if you can do it. Go.
You idiot! Who do you think you are?
Come on, give it to me.
You know everything about body language, don't you?
Give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Take that. Go and take that. Let me ask you this question. Who's had this experience? You've listened to somebody speaking. You've walked away and you've said to yourself, that sounded really convincing, but I got a gut feeling you can't believe a word of it. Who's had that feeling? Most of us have. Sometimes we might say, I've got a sixth sense, I've got a hunch, and the girls all say, my intuition tells me you can't trust that person. So what does it mean? Well, the research is quite incredible. It shows that when you and I are speaking face to face, that we're relying on the words that we use only a maximum of 7% of the time to put the message across. The gestures and what we call body language accounts for somewhere between 60 to 80% of the message it's sent. Now, if I try to tell you a lie or cover up, my gestures will no longer match my words. They go out of kilter. And a perceptive person will pick up that discrepancy and get a hunch or gut feeling, I'm not being honest. Does that make sense to you? Yes. Let's put you to the test. We'll see how perceptive you are. Here's the scene. You're in a home. And there's children playing outside. All of a sudden, you hear smashing glass and bottles. You race outside. Here's one little boy all on his own, head down, hands behind his back. Your question is, did you do that? To which he replies, no, it wasn't me. Question, hold your hand up if you suspect it was him. Aha! Here's another question. Do you then take your course of action based on the gesture or based on the words? Who would act on the gesture? Most of us. So in other words, if a gesture contradicts the words, we'll make our decision on what we see. Is this right? Now this is what perceptive, intuitive people are doing to us all the time, and we're doing it to them. When we're speaking to them, we're watching their gestures, listening to the sounds and words. The moment we see gestures and words that do not compute, we ignore the words and make our decision on what we call our gut level feeling. If you've ever known a hunch or gut level feeling about a person, when you're face to face with them, to be wrong, aren't they usually right? Aha! Now the origin of this hand-to-mouth gesture is quite simple. Child tells a lie, brain instructs the hand, cover the mouth. Stop the words from coming out. Now that same gesture is carried through in adulthood. That's why it's hard to believe somebody who's selling you a second-hand car, for example, who says, it's a great car, it's only done 25,000 kilometres and has a reconditioned motor. You would walk out of there and say, I've got a gut feeling you can't believe what that person's saying, without really knowing why you knew that. Okay, what other signs should we look for? What about our palms? What about our hands? If you want to be honest with me and tell me the truth, what gesture will you show at me? Try it. Open palms. Without even thinking, if you're going to be honest, you are programmed to turn your palms towards me. So the first thing to look for, if somebody's telling you the truth, are their palms visible? Because if I tell you the truth, my palms will be turned towards you. If I don't tell you the truth, they'll be out of sight, behind my back, in my pocket. So if I say to you, look, this is the truth, you can believe me, you can believe every word I say. I've always had a healthy respect for you, of course, and this is the truth. Now there is a contradiction in the middle of a sentence, and this is what happens. We get contradictions and truth in the same sentence. Now another thing we can do with our palms is to use it as an indicator. For example, if I talk and indicate with my palms up, I'm in a subordinate position. This is what we call a no weapons held position, which goes back 1 million or so years to the caveman era. They'd all hold their palms out so each could see that there are no weapons held in the hand or concealed under the arms. That's why when I speak and hold my hands out like that, you will find me easygoing, relaxing. For example, if I said, now we want everybody on this side of the room to move across here, everybody there to move across there, and you people to come across here, would you feel threatened in any way by that request? No. What about if I changed it and tried this with the same tone of voice and words? I want everybody on this side of the room to move across here. The people on there, I would like you to move over there. And you people, if you can go back over here. What do you feel I just told you to do it? Who felt an order? Aha. So all I did then was turn my palm from that position to that, and suddenly You felt I was telling you what to do. Is this right? Question, what sort of person are you? Do you talk with your palms up? Do you talk with your palms down? Who are the easiest people to talk with? Palms up. People with their palms down irritate people. Let's try the third method of pointing, what we call finger pointing. Now, what you here on this side, if you can go across and sit over there. You people there, I'd like you to sit right across there. What did you feel then? You better do it or else. It wouldn't matter how much I smiled or how happy I sounded. See, this is what we call a baton gesture. It comes in 3 delicious flavours. We get this one here that's called a baton, with which I'm going to hit your stupid, thick, idiotic head to knock a bit of sense into you. But because I'm his boss, I can't treat him that way. I smile and say, we're going to get on really well, I can see that. It's going to be great. Now, there's a second version that goes this way. Now, this is a problem, because where this is an intimidation signal, this is a danger signal. This is the movement that comes immediately before this. So in fighting, it goes from this to this to this. Let me show you how I can introduce somebody to you. What's your name, please?
Kerry.
Kerry. Come on out here with me, Kerry. Let's say, in this example, that I was going to introduce Kerry to you. There are 3 ways I can introduce you to you. Watch carefully what I do with my hands and see if you can gauge my attitude towards her. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my wife, Kerry. What do you see? Open palm, perhaps? There is a subordinates relationship between us, and I'm the subordinate one. What about if I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is my lovely wife, Kerry? And she'll do as she's told, right? What about, ladies and gentlemen, this is my lovely wife, Kerry, this lady right here. And as soon as I get her alone, there is one more signal that's worth looking at. In this country, if we think something has low status, that is, it's a bit of a joke, we shake our thumb at it and say, that over there. How about, ladies and gentlemen, let me present Kerry to you. Like, take a look. Thanks, Kerry. Give her a big hand. The other way we can use our hands is what's called a handshake. Now, when you shake hands with somebody for the very first time, you get one of 3 very distinct gut-level feelings. 1, you feel equal. Shake someone's hand, you feel, yeah, I like that person. Someone else, you shake them by the hand, and you think, ooh. Yes, well, I'll just stand over here. Someone else, you shake them by the hand, and you'll think, ha ha ha, you'll do as you're told. So you feel either equality, you feel superior, or you feel inferior. It's transmitted through the handshake. Can I have you for this demonstration, please?
Sure.
Come on out. What's your name?
Alan.
Okay, here we go. Give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Good. Now, just before I do this test, what I want you to do is to shake hands with the person sitting beside you. And for the people at home, shake hands with somebody in your living room right now. Give them your normal handshake. Pretend you're meeting for the very first time. Keep it shaking. Keep it going. Hold it. Freeze it. Keep your hands together. Don't move. We're going to analyse this. Don't move a muscle. Keep those hands together. There's one of 3 things taking place between your handshake. 1 is you're transmitting equality. 2 is you're transmitting that you'll be the boss. Or 3, you're prepared to give in. Now listen carefully to this, then analyse your handshake. The person whose hand is facing downmost is saying, I'm going to be the boss and you'll do as you're told. If your palm's up, you're prepared to give in. Okay, stop holding hands. You see, the second origin of handshaking is arm wrestling. Handshaking originated like this. The winner would have palm down, the loser would be palm up. Modern man has put it into a vertical position. You can stop holding hands now, girls. So now the hands locked together. As I try to turn his hand over, he resists. So what are we left with? A handshake that's straight up and down, just the way my dad told me to shake. Good firm grip, son, keep the palm straight. He's only got to let it go just a little bit. Now, I got you, fella. Or if I give in, oh, I feel threatened by him. Now, that's why the most frustrating handshake of all, just hold your palm out flat down, is this one. Every managing director presents this to the staff. Because if I take his hand, what is he forcing me to do? Become submissive. How do you handle someone who does that all the time? Just hold it right there again. Here is the simplest, most effective way. Pleased to meet you once again. Good to see you. Give a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Who do you think are naturally the best people at reading body language? Women. Well, who thinks it's the women? Naturally the best. All the women, right? Who thinks the guys are naturally best at reading body language? Well, let's have a look at what the test with babies revealed. They got babies that were 6 weeks of age. When the baby was crying, the mothers were asked to look at the baby and determine what the baby wanted. The mothers could tell 5 entirely separate meanings behind the same cry. It was hungry, it was scared, it was in pain, wanted attention, and needed his nappy changed. Then they got the father to have a look at the same baby. What do you think he saw? A crying baby. In other words, the fathers couldn't tell the difference in the test conducted. Women are born with an innate ability to decode the body signals of other people, and this is for the survival of our species. If a woman can't look at a baby and tell you from its movement and its sound what it wants, it's detrimental to that child living. Does that make sense? Women are born with the ability to do it, men aren't. And for that reason, women make the world's best negotiators, salespeople, interviewers, interrogators, personnel people. They're not necessarily found in those roles as much, but they are the best at it. And for that reason, I say to every man here tonight, because women are so good at it, if you're going to tell a lie to a woman, particularly one who knows you, do it in writing or over the telephone. Because your chances of getting away with it face-to-face are reduced by 60 to 80%. That's how good girls are at it. Fellas, have you ever known a woman to say something like, my intuition says you can't believe that person, and for her to be wrong? They're never wrong, are they? Girls always get it right. Well, let's just put it to the test. Let's ask a couple of the girls here tonight if they've noticed any particular habits or gestures that their men friend have, their boss, boyfriend, or whatever, and we'll see if we can get a meaning behind it. Who's got a gesture?
My husband sometimes rubs the back of his neck, like this.
Like this? This is what we call a pain in the neck gesture. That is, if somebody gives you a pain in the neck, they're referring to that tingling feeling on the back of the neck that causes you to bring your hand up and satisfy it like this. Does he do it at any particular time?
Yes, actually he does, when my mother comes around.
Anybody else have a particular gesture that they might have noticed? Yes, at the back.
My boss clasps his hands together and he puts them behind his head, and he sort of sits back in his seat when he's talking to me. It really is irritating.
Does anybody have a boss who does this at them? This is what we call a superiority gesture. If you like, when I do it, I'm saying, maybe one day you'll be as smart as me if you're lucky. The bosses love to do it at the staff. Sales manager does it at the salesman. Men love to do it at women. Girls, when a man does it at you, is it intimidating? Aha, well, let's put this to the test. What happens if he annoys you like that? When he sits back and does it, you know the best thing to do? Copy it. Now, there's 2 of you doing it. First one who changes is the loser. So after a few minutes, he gets a feeling something's not quite right and changes to this. You wish him all the best as you leave. Anybody else have a fella who's got a habit?
It's not a fella, but I have a tendency at times to twirl my hair.
Fiddle with your hair like this?
Yeah.
Every person has isolated, repetitive, out-of-context gestures that show that we're under pressure. For example, cigarette smokers will smoke cigarettes. Somebody might continually scratch their neck, pull their earlobe. John Laws continually taps his nose and twiddles his ear when he's under pressure. Now, usually those gestures show that you're either bored or you're tense. Do you do it at any particular time?
I was waiting at the dentist the other day and I did it.
Okay, what would that signify? You're nervous. Now, there's a problem with that gesture. I must add this. This is also a gesture that's used in courtship. That is, if a lady likes a guy, one of the come-on signals she'll give him is this. Now, the problem is, do you find that when you're terribly nervous, men find you irresistible? Here she comes. Beautiful piece of womanhood. He's had a hard day fishing. Watch his body change when he sees her. How many of you have done that? Is he going to... Oh. She's gone on her way. He's doing no good at anything that day. So the first thing that happens is a physiological change. Now, we said in the last segment that when somebody gets excited by another person, there's a certain part of their body grows to 4 times its normal size. Do you know which part that is?
Oh, it's pupil.
Let's put it to the test. I'd like you now to take a look at this. Here we have a right-hand picture, here we have a left hand. Which do you find the most stimulating and exciting? Put your hand up if you find the right hand the most stimulating. Most of us. Do you know that most people can in fact decode the signal that's in that particular picture? What we've done is enlarge the right-hand pupils of Kerry-Ann to 4 times the pupil size of the left. When somebody is excited by you, their pupils will actually expand. If they're negative, they're unhappy, the pupils will constrict and become smaller. And you know, most of us can decode these pupil signals and we reflect it in our speech. We say things like, it sounded convincing, but you wouldn't trust him. Did you see his beady little eyes? How many of us have used that expression? Never realised what we were actually seeing. What about cigarette smoking? You know, if I feel positive, and we'll say positive means I like you, I like what you're saying, I like being here, I feel positive about what you're presenting. Which way would you expect me to exhale the smoke, assuming that I'm far enough away from you that it wouldn't make any difference? Up. Anybody think I blow it down? Who thinks I blow the smoke down if I feel positive? Nobody. Did you realise you always knew it wouldn't go down? Who thinks I'd blow it? Who thinks I'd blow it up? Who thinks I'd blow it straight out? We've got a few non-smokers here. Let's put it to the test. I'll give you a sentence, then I'll give you the part for you to be the judge. Bob, I think what you've had to say has been excellent. When the committee meeting comes up on Tuesday, I'm going to be recommending your solutions because I think you know what you're talking about. You can count on me, friend.
I don't agree with you.
Had he better rely on me? No. He better not. What's your name?
Bob.
Bob. Okay, Bob. 2 Bobs. Bob, I think what you've had to say is certainly the right solution for us, and when I go to the board meeting on Tuesday, I'm going to be pushing for you because I think you know what you're talking about. You can count on me. Had he better count on me? He better not. Okay. What's your name, please?
Cheryl.
Cheryl. Cheryl, I've really enjoyed meeting you here at the party tonight. It's been really great. And I just wondered if you'd like to come back to my place and see my etchings. Would it be reasonable to say that most of us would assume that people who are continually in the news, like politicians, television interviewers, those whose faces we see continually, royalty, that we would expect them to be confident when they're in front of a crowd? Would that be a reasonable assumption? Yes. Okay, well let's just have a look at a few and see what their body language shows us. How confident are they? How does their body language give them away? One of the world's best interviewers is a man by the name of Michael Parkinson. Now Michael Parkinson is renowned for 2 things. What's the most obvious gesture that Michael Parkinson uses? Grabs his ear. When Michael Parkinson has heard enough from the interviewee and he wants to terminate and ask the next question, Michael Parkinson would like to do this. But that's not very nice. It comes out like this. He then looks away at the next question, interrupts with the next question. So it is, I've heard enough. Another one of Michael Parkinson's well-known ones is this one here, where he clenches his fists together. It's a frustration signal showing he's holding back his emotions. He'd like to say how he really feels, but can't. Let's have a look at a clip of some of Michael Parkinson's other well-known gestures. Here we see him in his typical sitting back, soliciting information. He wants the interviewee to talk, covering his mouth so he doesn't speak. Here he's leaning forward, rubbing his hands together, eager and excited, either about what Jill Rand's saying or possibly her legs. I can't be too sure about that. But he's keen. In this next scene, Darren Hinch has got him on the ropes. He's defensive, arms crossed, he doesn't want to know. Look at the angle of their bodies leaning away from each other. It's a very negative situation for Michael Parkinson. Here, he's heard enough, we'll go for a commercial break, he's saying. And in this next one, watch his hands when the madam from the massage parlour describes what will happen to Michael Parkinson when he visits the brothel. Watch those thumbs. Here's how most people remember Bob Hawke. With the finger pushing forward, driving home his point. Now, all of a sudden, overnight, Bob Hawke becomes a contender for the #1 job. And he realises that the pointed finger, the karate chop, and the fist do not match the office of a Prime Minister. And he has to go through a transition to fit that role. Here's the way it looked in his policy speech. He tried the open palms. Come unto me, my brethren. Now, most Australians thought that Bob Hawke looked wrong during his campaign. Would that be a fair statement? He didn't look right because he was using the palms and it doesn't suit him. Today, he's modified that. He's modified the palm gesture and modified the finger gesture. And have a look at the screen now. Here's what we see. He's talking with an interviewer. Now, watch for his hands. Up they come. Using his hands in this position to make the point. See, when you speak like this, you can drive home your point as you would with a finger, but not be intimidating. And he doesn't have to hold his palms out, which doesn't suit him, but he still has an open palm. So he's both credible and drives his point home. And it was a tremendous transition that he went through. Prince Charles, do you think he's confident in front of a crowd?
No.
Ah. At the start of the show, we said that when people feel uncertain, defensive, they may cross their arms like this. It wouldn't look fitting for Prince Charles to cross his arms like this walking through the crowd, as much as he'd like to. So he has hidden the gesture and disguised it with something else. See if you can spot it. Here he comes inspecting the guard. I want you to watch his right hand and see what he does with it. Feeling confident now, straight for the cufflink on his left arm. Now this is what we call a disguised arm barrier. He'd love to cross his arms, but by bringing the right arm across and playing with the cufflink, he gets that same secure feeling he'd get if we crossed our arms. Now, even at the Royal Ball in Sydney, he was seen walking through with the same position. And there it is. Would it be fair if we said that Prince Charles is known as a ladies' man? Would that be a reasonable statement? Yeah. One of the things that makes him a ladies' man is that he uses printing gestures when he's with attractive women. One of these printing gestures is a favourite of many men. And this is it. Adjusting the tie whether it needs it or not. If an attractive lady walked through the door and I saw her, it might go like this. Oh, hello there. Would you like a dance? Let's have a look at Prince Charles and see how he uses it. Here he is in the crowds. Now, he hasn't noticed the attractive curvy blonde with a low-cut dress who's just behind the woman he's talking to. He's more intent on making his point by driving his finger home. Now, see what happens when he sees the blonde with the low-cut dress. Oh, hello there, and how are you? Now, all of us act predictably when our territory is invaded by other people. Our territory can include our home, our motor car, our office. And within our territories, there are sub-territories. For example, in your own home, everybody has his or her chair. And nobody else had better dare sit in it, right? Let's see what happens when we sit at a table. And can I use you? What's your name?
Steve.
Steve, come on up, Steve. Give him a big hand. Come over. Sit down there, Steve. Here we have a scene that's at a restaurant. It could be at an office. We have a square desk. Now, here's the problem with a square desk. First of all, whenever there are sides on a table, this occurs with a square and rectangular desk, people take sides, which means we take barriers. While me sitting at this desk in this position, I have put myself in a crossed arms position in relation to Steve, and our conversation will generally be negative. Now, the research shows that there's around a 25% greater chance of me persuading Steve if we have a round table than if we have a table with sides, because at a round table there's no what? There's no corners and barriers. Now, the other problem is that when we sit here, we unconsciously divide the table into two halves, his territory and mine. Now, if I try to invade his territory, he won't like it. Now, let's say we're having a business lunch and discussing a business, and I decide I want to rattle him, get him off edge. All I need to do as we discuss business is watch closely. And business has been pretty good, they tell me, Steve. Been all right. I just push the salt shaker across. And I believe you've been doing very well too, the ashtray. And apparently you've been looking forward to getting a rise in the company. And I reckon it's... can you see what happens? He said, oh, right. Give him a big hand. Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much. He sits back and crosses his arms. A round table is the way to get people on side and to see your point of view. Now, personal space also extends to a certain amount of air around our bodies that we take and claim as our own. Now, in the case of somebody from a capital city, it differs from somebody from the country. Can I ask you to come up, please? What's your name?
Jane.
Give her a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Jane. If Jan and I were from a capital city where people are fairly well packed, just come back a little bit closer. There we go. If we were from a capital city, our personal spatial need is around about 18 inches. That is, my territory is 18 inches and so is Jan's, and we will fight to protect each other's territory. What distance apart do you think we would stand when we talk socially? 3 feet. Now, if we come from the country, a rural area where people are used to more space, we have a bigger spatial need. What could it be? It could be 2 feet each, so when we stand apart and talk, we stand at 4 feet. Country people stand further away than city people. Here's the problem. Let's say Jan is from the country. She needs me to stand at 4 feet. How do I feel standing at 4 feet? Yeah, I don't feel too comfortable, so quite unconsciously I'll just step forward to the 3 foot mark where I feel quite comfortable. And that is the result. She goes back. Now, I'm too far away, so I'll just step forward again, and I'll come after her. Now, any country girl will tell you that the city fellas are what? Fast! Yeah! What they're referring to is the city fellow is encroaching into the country girl's space. Because I'm not trying to do a line with Jan, I'm not. All I'm trying to do is to have a conversation. Give her a big hand. Thank you. Let's have a look at something that most people identify with. Being booked by the police. How many people here have been pulled up for speeding and booked by the police? A few people rubbing the back of their neck, they're not too sure. Let's have a look at the territorial roles of each person that's being booked. Now, in this case, what's your name, sir? Ken. Come on up, Ken. Ken, I'd like you to sit up the back here. You're going to be the police officer. And here's my car. In fact, we're going to make this official. Here we have Officer Ken. And he's in the car behind me. Now, I've been speeding, there's no doubt about it. And he's pulled me over to the side of the road. Here's the normal role. Officer, come out of your car, come across. He gets out of his car and walks across to me. I wind my window down, correct? And say, Officer, was I speeding? Will he slap a ticket on me? Yes. Let's have a look at what happened from a territorial point of view. He was nice and... Come back here, don't run away. He was nice and secure in his territory. By me remaining in the car, I have forced him to do what? Come from his territory into a hostile territory. I'm now down here behind a large barrier making excuses. Here's what to do next time the police book you up. Okay, officer, get back in the car. Now, suddenly the sirens are lights, he pulls me up. The first thing is, get out of the car. And go briskly, not too fast, briskly back to him so he's not forced to come from his territory to yours. Number one. Number two is, get lower. Hopefully he's not out of the car so I can go down. Hold my palms out, no weapons concealed. Number three is, degrade myself. I'm such an idiot. Now, I never said this was easy, but it's better than getting a fine, right? And it's a lot of fun. So three, I degrade myself. I'm such an idiot, I didn't mean to be speeding. How could I have possibly thought, what a fool? Number four, raise his status to show that you know where he is. I want to thank you for stopping me. I could have hurt myself. You guys do a terrific job, you really do. You've got to be an actor, but gee, it's fun. Finally you say, you're not going to book me, are you? You reckon he can book you at that point? Well, you reckon he can? Oh, give him a big hand. Thanks, kid. Thank you. Okay. One of the places where people step into your personal space and you can't do anything about it is an elevator. Now, it also happens in planes, trains, and crowded buses. The problem with being in an elevator is strangers are within your space and you can't do anything about it. Now, there's a set of rules that we must go through when somebody gets into our space. We're in an elevator, okay? First thing is go totally blank. And look at the numbers only. Here's some exciting, a lot of fun you can have with these games, stepping into someone's space. Look at the monitor, here's how you do it. Go to a building where there's an elevator, and there all are watching the numbers. Walk in, the difference is you don't turn around, you face them. And you smile. Now, it wouldn't matter what number they pressed when they got in, at the next floor, out they go, every one of them. Here's a variation. You get in an elevator with another fella where there's a third person and face him. There's a good chance he'll face to that. Here's the next. You get in an elevator with a friend and face the back, wait for the next guy to get in. First of all, he thinks he's walked into the back of the elevator. Now, the pressure is too great for him, and he will be forced through your pressure to turn around and also face the back of the elevator. We're going to take a break now, and we hope that everybody has picked up something on what it feels like to have your personal space invaded.
Ladies and gentlemen, Australia's own body language expert, Alan Peace.
Now, they teach body language now in universities and colleges, and practically every sales and negotiation course has it in there. It's even found its way into the latest Australian Macquarie Dictionary as common language. Now, the question is, what makes it so popular? Well, it's because we know from a scientific standpoint that body language signals have 4 times the impact of what you say. Now, that being the case, try this simple test. Next time you go into a hotel, say to the person behind the bar, give me 3 beers. How many beers would you expect to get? 2. Yeah, 4 times out of 5, you'll get 2. Now just try this test. Everybody join me, please. Finger in the air. Now on top of your head, on your forehead, on your nose, on your chin. I said to put it on your chin. How many people have got a chin out here? Now most of you are influenced by what I did, not by what I said. Now, with body language, you've got to look for congruence. That's the first thing. That is to make sure the gestures are agreeing with what you hear, because quite often they don't. Now say, for example, I don't like you. If I really feel I don't like you, I make this gesture. But what if I'm saying, yes, I really do like you? We're going to look now at a perfect match contestant who's describing the weekend he had with the girl who was his date. What a wonderful girl she was. We're going to show you first in slow motion, then show you what he actually said, and he changes his mind right at the end. Here's the clip. Now, in slow motion, what would you say his attitude was? Positive or negative? Yeah, clearly he's negative. But he's saying what a wonderful girl she is. What a great time he had. Now, we're going to show you this clip now in fast motion. Listen to what he says at the end when he comes clean. This is the girl.
She's an okay girl, you know, she's... No, she's not, I don't like her.
Number 1 is to look for congruence, that is the gestures match. Number 2, you've got to make sure you never take any one single gesture and try to say it means something. If I button my coat, what does that mean? I'm cold. It could also mean I'm defensive, that is, I don't like what you just said. Now, what if I grab at my neck and start to jiggle my tie? What does this mean? A bit hot, uneasy, telling a lie, my shirt's too tight. Have a look at these clips and see if you can pick a cluster, a group of gestures. Now Bob Hawke is buttoning his coat because he's in Brussels on tour and it's freezing. He's actually in a good attitude. Now contrast that against Mr. Keating, who's about to face an angry press. He starts by buttoning his coat. Now he's smiling as though he's going to be cooperative. Next he wrings his hands together as the smile broadens even more. Now this is a cluster, a group of gestures that tells you that the coat buttoning was negative. And he finishes up by crossing his arms. His face is saying, yes, I'll be cooperative. His body is saying, no way are you going to get any information out of me. Now in this next scene, Bob Hawke is giving a speech. He's about to start pulling at his collar. Now what does this mean? Does that mean he's telling a lie? Does it mean he's uncomfortable? Does it mean he's hot? If we freeze the picture, you can see that Hazel's put too much starch in his shirts that day. In this next clip, you'll see another example of a fairly typical cluster. This man, Mr. Ruxton of the RSL in Victoria, is driving home his point on Asian immigration by using a finger baton, a karate chop. He sits back, crosses his arms, and his cluster says very clearly what his attitude is on immigration, negative. In his next scene, Mr. Hawke is just about to rub his nose. Now, we know people who rub their nose often tell a lie, but he's promising tax cuts next year. Now, was that an actual lie or not? We don't take any one gesture on its own. Let's see what happens. You've got a runny nose. Now, if I scratch my head, it can mean I don't understand. It could also mean I've got dandruff. If I rub my nose, it could mean I've got an itchy nose. It could mean I'm also lying to you. If I hitch my trousers up, it could mean they're too big. It could also mean I can't wait to get back home. You never take one on its own and try to say it means something. You take a whole group called a cluster. So if somebody says to you, it makes good sense to me, I can understand what you're getting at, and by the way, how's your girlfriend? Don't believe a word they say. Now, of all the body language signals we use to send to somebody else, there's nothing that sends any signals as powerful as the eyes, particularly where we gaze. Now, we use our gaze to send a number of signals. For example, we use it to send a signal of aggression, where we lock in on someone and our blinking stops. We use it to show interest, that we're keen on someone, by giving them more interest and more gaze than we normally would. We look at them a lot. And we use it to show disinterest and disrespect by looking away and not looking at them at all. Now, another use that we have with our gaze is controlling where somebody's looking. Now, this is particularly important if you're in the sales business, if you're a negotiator, or if you just want to show something to someone. Let me show you an example. Can I ask you to come up? What's your name?
Derek.
Come on up here, Derek. Give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, you, Derek. Over here, mate. Okay. Let's do that. I have something here to show to Derek. My objective is to convince him. Now, I know that 87% of what his mind gets comes through his eyes, 9% through his ears, 4% through the other senses. That is, he's a visual creature. So if I don't control where he's looking, I'm not going to get the message across, right? Here's the way most people do it. Well, here you can see 57,000, Derek, was the amount of money that we decided to put in, mainly because of the fact that most people over that period of time thought that was the right amount. Now, 10 years was it. He doesn't know where to look, the poor devil. He's rubbing his nose. Now, I'm going to use my eyes as pointers, and I'm going to use my pen as pointers to control the information. Watch carefully. Interest, Derek. Now, he sees it and he hears it. Now, the reason we put that in there was because that was the right amount of money to be spread over 10 years, okay? Now, there you'll see a period of 15 years on this loan. Now, the reason we just see what's happening? I'm controlling where he's looking. Now, what happens, though, if he doesn't look up? This time you don't look up. Resist. $15,000. Now, that was an amount that we decided to put in. What happens when he refuses to look? He's going to read and not look up. Don't look up at all. Resist. $15,000, Derek. That's an amount that... Now, if he doesn't look up, there's no point in me continuing to speak because 87% comes through his eyes. But like fishing, I'm going to try and hook him again. I go down again. 15,000? Now, that's an amount of money. He learns pretty quickly. Okay. What happens if he takes the information away from me? Now, power players love to do this. He takes it off me now. How do I control his gaze now? He's got it over his side. I use my extendable pen. So now the other You know, research with slow motion cameras that record eye movements shows something very interesting. And that is that when you're talking with somebody in a social situation, that is, there's no pressure, no tension, You're looking at a very clearly defined area on their face. That area is here to here, down to their mouth and back. 90% of your gaze is directed in what we call the social triangle, and we call that a social gaze. Now, has everybody been in a situation where the atmosphere was friendly? You felt good. All of a sudden the atmosphere changed and went cold. You felt threatened. Nobody said anything, but it just changed. Has everybody experienced that?
Yeah.
What the camera showed is when that happened, the gaze has changed from this eye to that eye to a third point in the centre of your forehead. That is, if I intentionally look at this area of your face, you'll feel threatened. If I look at your area here, you'll feel it's social. We call that a business gaze. And that's when you put the screws on someone, as they say. And we also found with men and women, when they meet each other, they give each other what's called an intimate gaze. And you can guess what that's all about. It goes from one eye across to the other eye, down to the chest, or lower, and back. Women give it at 1/400th of a second to a man. A man's a lot slower. Here's a question for you. How can you tell if somebody really likes you? That is, they really do like you. The vibes are good, as we say. We have a rapport. Well, there's some physical signs that you can look for. Now, what's your name? Neil. Neil. Give Neil a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Here are Neil and I. He's gone straight for his cuff. Pruning. What is there about Neil and I that you can tell that we have a good rapport and the vibes are good? Anything about us you can tell? Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands on your hips. Anything special about us you notice? Put your hands in front of you. Now he's doing the broken fly. Yeah. We are mirroring each other's position. Now this is exactly, let's put your hands on your hips. This is exactly what people who really get on with each other do quite unconsciously. If you like someone, you'll start to mirror their gestures behind your back. If they like you, they'll do the same. Now the studies show when we're with strangers, we make sure we don't stand like anybody. Try going to a bus stop and doing this. On your hip. Press your arms. Behind your back. Now he either gets real angry and thumps me or he walks off. He can't handle it. It's too much for him. When somebody really likes you, they stand and sit like you do. It's also a very effective strategy. If you want someone to see your point of view and get on side with you, you stand like them. As they change your copy, as they change your copy, before long they say, this character understands me. And you have a rapport. Wouldn't you say that Ronald Reagan likes Bob Hawke? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay, no, yes? Here's the answer. You have a mutual sitting position, identical. Now the leader always starts first. I don't know who did this first, but it's an identical and mutual position. They get on real well, no doubt about it. Now here Bob Hawke is attacking the Liberal Party. They form a power block to repel this by all sitting in exactly the same position. Here's Prime Minister Nakasone. Beside him is Bob Hawke mirroring his position. They get on real well. Now Bob Hawke wants to see what's happening on his right-hand side. He can hear a noise. He doesn't want to turn his head. Watch what he does with his eyes. Now he looks back to the Japanese Prime Minister to see whether he saw him do that or not. Now he goes for another one. Here he goes again. Ooh. Have you ever walked into somebody's office? A bank manager, lawyer, an accountant, maybe your own boss, or you've gone for a job interview. You felt you had something important to say. But the minute you sat in the chair opposite him or her, you felt insignificant and you had nothing to say. Has everybody experienced that? Yeah. There's a good chance you've walked into a power play. Now, power play is where the person set it up to take away your power and prestige and give them a lot more for themselves. Now, the sort of things you might see include power body language. Here's a collection of the sort of things that the person who thinks they're better than you will use to show status. Thumbs poking out of the coat pockets, very popular in most bosses. Palm in palm behind the back is used by those in authority, royal family, Prince Philip and Charles, police officers, in the army, the navy, those who think they're in charge. Standing with your legs spread is a good male aggression power play. Look at this, baby. Yeah, thumbs on the lapel. Rocking up and down on the balls with the feet to get extra height is another typical power play. And putting your hand on top of the other person to get the upper hand is another classic example. Now with that, we're going to have a look now at a power play situation. A man is about to go and ask for a pay rise. He's going to walk into the boss's office. The boss is sitting in his power chair, which has a high back. The higher the back of the chair, the more power people think you've got. I mean, think of the Pope on his great big chair, 18 feet high at the back. You picture him sitting on a stool. That doesn't look right, no power. Let's have a look at what happened with this man going for a pay rise. Now, the boss's office window faces west and it's late in the afternoon, so the sun goes right into your eyes. He has the power desk, which is a real big one to keep you away. His chair moves in every direction. He's got all the power status symbols around his desk as well. The power ashtray, which you couldn't reach anyway, is too far away. Confidential red files that you're not allowed to look in. Mercedes or BMW or Porsche keyring, and the power phone system. Now here's your chair down on the floor. And you're expected to negotiate. Here comes our fellow for the pay rise. Knocks on the door. Walks the plank right down the desk. Talks to the boss. Boss, I've got an appointment to see about a pay rise. What does the boss do? Ignores him. Now looks over the top of his glasses, condescending. Puts his hand right on top. I got you, fella. Sit down there. The fella sits down, his nose level on the guy's desk. Crosses his legs, turns himself away. The body language is very negative. From this position, he has very little chance of negotiating successfully. The boss still ignores him. Now, when he does talk, he looks over his glasses, keeps the pen in his hand so he can keep writing, ignoring the fellow even more. Now, this poor devil hasn't got a chance of getting the pay rise at all. He's right down low on the floor. Now, the boss goes into the boss's favourite position that shows he's smarter than you. There it is. That was the one gesture that most bosses use for the staff. It's a gesture that most women say they can't stand the boss doing at them, or the husband. Am I right, girls? The one that says, I'm smarter than you, and then he puts his leg over the arm of the chair, right? You know how you fix that? You say to him, there's a split in your trousers, and see how... All right, now, let's have another look at a situation where we have a woman going to negotiate for benefits, for superannuation for the other staff members. She's aware of power plays. The two things she does different, she knocks on the door and calls the boss's name when she comes in, forcing him to look up so he can't dominate with his gaze. Next, she puts the information on a round table in the corner before she walks to his desk, saying to him clearly, this is where we're going to do business. Let's see how she handles it. Here he is at the desk. She comes to the door, knocks, calls his name, forces him to look up. Now she puts the information on the table, walks around his desk so he can't get her with that dominant handshake. Gives him a double-hander. That's really rocked him. She takes a step back, he takes a step forward. He's getting out from behind his desk. Now she says, the information is over on the desk, let's go and talk about it. He's not feeling real comfortable about this, he'd rather stay here at the desk. But she guides him across. Now she sits him down, she's got him at a round table, which is the conducive area for making sales presentations, for negotiation. She gets the information now. She's going to use the pen to control his gaze so he can't look away. She didn't hook him the first time. Now she hooks him the second time and starts to nod her head and he copies. Things are looking good. Now he feels a bit rattled. As a large ditch effort, he's going to sit back and do his favourite gesture. Here it comes. This'll dominate her. Try that, baby. But she's handled his type before. She knows just what to do. She copies. Now there's two of them doing it. First one to change is a loser. He's had it. And what about our political leaders? There's no better opportunity for us to see body language and action for politicians than in that historical debate in this country. Now, it's interesting to see what happened. The political commentators said that it was Andrew Peacock's body language that won the debate. Now, it's interesting to see the play. Bob Hawke is one of Australia's most mobile body language exponents. He's good at it, even though he has a repetitive nose touch, eye rub and ear pull. On this particular night, he didn't play it that way. Here's the way it went. He got his right hand to firmly hold his left hand in place so he wouldn't scratch his nose, face or ear because of the negative implications of doing that. He hardly touched his face all night. Now, Andrew Peacock, on the other hand, laced his fingers together, had a funny look on his face. Not a very becoming gesture. It shows and highlights frustration. Now, Bob Hawke's most repetitive gesture was rearranging his notes all night. We sped this up for you to see how it happened. He was unaware of what he was doing, but he was effectively getting his thoughts into logical sequence, and he was coming out in body language by rearranging the notes on his desk. Andrew Peacock, on the other hand, tried to make a strong and powerful point whilst using a limp wrist gesture. Again, Andrew's face looked good, his words were good, but the limp wrist detracted from what he had to say. Now, when Andrew attacked Bob Hawke came back with a fierce attack of pointed finger, tilted head, constricted pupils, and laid home the law. Made it very clear. But when Bob Hawke attacked Andrew Peacock, something different happened. Andrew started to preen himself. He did his coat up, touched the makeup on the side of his face, scratched scratched the sweat under his nose. Oh, you horrible man. Now let's have a look at the strategy for the night. Here was Bob Hawke's strategy, was to address his answers to whoever asked the question. He didn't look at us at home. It was a third-party strategy. We felt as though we were outside looking in on a private conversation between a group of people. Now this is where the debate was won and lost. Andrew Peacock's strategy was to look right into the barrel of the camera, and there was no doubt left that his message was exactly meant for us. We, the voters, felt he was talking to us personally. He looked straight down the barrel and no other place, and this is where the debate was won. Andrew's body language actually got it right. Now let me ask you all a question. How many of you felt that Andrew Peacock won the debate? Hold your hand up. The majority felt that way. Now hold your hand up if you can really remember anything he had to say. Yeah, very few people, which shows that people listen to not what you say, but what your body says. Somebody asked the question before, how do you know when the politicians were lying that night? Simple, when their lips were moving, they were lying. There's no doubt about it. Now, I've got to say, I didn't really mean to say that at all. Now, one of the subtle differences between royalty, in terms of leadership, and politicians is this. You rarely see the royals pointing their finger at anybody, but politicians do it. Now, the finger point comes in two varieties. The baton, where I strike you on the head because you're stupid. And we have the more dangerous one, the dagger, that drives home and digs holes in you. Now, this is dangerous because we know this usually is a signal that you're about to cop a punch. Now, have a look at the screen and see how this works. Here's Bob Hawke using the dagger to drive the finger home. Now, politicians don't normally punch each other, not in public anyway. Now, contrast that against this next scene. On an American television show, the man in brown was daggering his finger at the audience. The interviewer didn't like it. Here's what happened.
I don't listen to you. I've heard enough of you already. I'm telling you, I'm telling these young people.
It's a nice show, and if you don't knock it off, I'm throwing you off personally. Can you hear that, Maureen, buddy?
Yeah,
all right.
Listen.
Now, in this next scene, the man on the right being interviewed is talking about some of the problems of Dutch territories. He's offending a fellow in the audience who's not only using a dagger, but extending it. The man being interviewed makes a nasty remark to him, starts pointing his finger back at this fellow, and here's what happened. This is a result of too much finger pointing. Here's some union confrontation. This woman is using her dagger finger to drive it home into this fella, to tell him where to get off. Now, he knows he's in trouble, but it's not very ladylike for someone to punch. But she's about to attack. The finger goes right home deep. Now, he turns, he knows something's about to happen. She clenches her fist, she steps back, and here it comes, right into his face.
Spoken about tonight, do they mean the same thing?
The question is, does body language vary in other countries? That's a good question. I've learned that one the hard way. For example, recently I went to France, and I was greeted by a Frenchman who kissed me on both cheeks. And that was really embarrassing for me. I was tying my shoelaces up at the time. The answer is yes. It does vary. Let me demonstrate this. Can I ask everybody here to hold up your right hand and show me the number 5? Can I see the number 5? Right, now hold it there. Change it very quickly to the number 2. Now keep it there. If you look around, with the exception of one or two very rude people, everybody has those two fingers with their palms facing in an outward direction. Okay, palms down. If this was Europe, let's say it was Germany, and you were Germans, how do you predict everybody would be holding the number 2? Now that's the victory sign for a German. This way. Because the Germans count from 1 to 5 like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do we do it? Try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And where does the thumb come in this country? At the number 5. Now, if you started on your thumb and you were born or raised in an English-speaking country, it means you're either a slow counter or there's somebody around you with a European influence because they start on the thumb for the number 1. Now, let me give you a couple of basic examples of cultural differences. What does this mean to you? Okay. What does this mean to a German? The number 1. What does this mean to a Northern Greek? Pretty close. It means why don't you go and get whatever you can think of that's the worst thing you can say. There's a very insulting signal. Now there's a problem because in this country, what is this on the side of the road? Hitchhike signal. What happens if you hitchhike through northern Greece? You get a lift? Maybe not. What does this gesture mean to you? Okay. It's an okay signal. What does that mean to a Frenchman? No. Zero. Nothing. Worthless. Naught. What does it mean to Japanese? Money. It's the money sign for the Japanese. What does it mean to a Maltese or a Northern Greek? Okay, if a man is effeminate, what gesture will we all use to signify we think he's effeminate? The limp wrist gesture. Now, the Greeks and Maltese don't say he's like this, they say he's like this. Never tell a Maltese everything's okay. You'll have more friends than you counted them. Incidentally, you might recall the Aussie Bonds ad on television. Now, the Greeks and the Maltese are prolific buyers of Aussie bonds. Well, of bonds in general. When the first Aussie bonds came out, the Greeks were not buying them. Why was that happening? The Greeks come out on their ships, pockets full of money. They turn the television on, what do they see? Aussie bond. Aussie bond. Would you like a translation of what they're saying? Aussie bond. Aussie bond. They're not buying any of those bonds. Do we have another question? Yes, up the back here.
Can anyone learn to read body language better?
Well, there's a couple of very good ways to learn how to become better at body language. The first, of course, is to pick up a copy of one of the world's biggest selling books on body language. It's great value, there's no doubt about that. One of the most effective ways is to spend 15 minutes a night watching television with the sound turned completely off. Now, by doing that, you've forced yourself into the situation and circumstances of a deaf person. That is, you can only watch one medium, which is the body language, which we know transmits 60 to 80% of the message. Now, at 15 minutes a night for 3 weeks in a row, at the end of 3 weeks of doing that, suddenly your perceptiveness, your intuitiveness, your hunches and gut feelings become very acute, and you start to see and pick up things you were not seeing before. That's the most effective way to do it. Who else has a question? Yeah, down the front.
When you were demonstrating why people, the way you shake hands, you say, oh, this person, I like the way you shake hands. You were looking for 3 men. There are 3 men sitting here. You came to me and you passed me, and I was just wondering, what sort of thing does that mean about your body language?
That's a good question. I'm certainly glad you asked that question. Well, and let me paraphrase that in a question. If you're between the ages of 20 and 40, which everybody in this room is, there's no doubt about that, you have a problem with handshaking. And this relies particularly to the girls. Because the girls who are between 20 and 40 grew up in the era where television came into being. Now, from the corner of your eyes, girls, you notice that your mother did not shake hands as a custom, because her generation didn't do that. Yet you watched the television and saw the American and European girls shaking for it. So the average girl now between 20 and 40 is confused about what she should do. Now, this is a problem for the fellas. Because here's what happens. We've all been through this. You're at a function. Fellas, you're being introduced to a lady. You watch out of the corner of each other's eyes to see if anybody's going to reach for it. As you're introduced, she reaches for her handbag to get a tissue. You think she's going for it, and so out you go for it. Vacant space. Pull it back. She sees it. She reaches for it. And then she pulls it back. You go, has everybody been through this? It's a problem. The average girl doesn't know what to do, and the average man, when he sees a woman's hand coming towards him, quite frankly, he wouldn't know what to do with it. Is that right, girls? Will you grab it? How hard do you hold it? Should you kiss it? And what do you do? I make a point of shaking every girl by the hand that I meet, for 2 reasons. One is it avoids this happening, and it makes us on an equal basis right from the start, because I can give her an equal handshake, and I suggest you fellas do the same. Secondly, I can learn a lot about her attitude towards me through that shake, which is helpful information. Who has another question? Yes, sir.
I have a friend who is particularly good at meetings and things like that, at picking pieces of lint and fluff off his sleeves and off his jacket. I'm just wondering what that means.
Does everybody know somebody who sits there and picks imaginary pieces of fluff and dust off their coat? Tests were done with this gesture. They got teenagers. In the teenagers, they mixed people in their 50s and 60s. The teenagers were instructed at a given point to start talking about drugs and the virtues of them, almost to a person. When the drugs story came up, the 50 and 60-year-olds looked away and started picking imaginary pieces of fluff from their jackets. This is what we call a disapproval signal. That is, they didn't want to give their opinion, but they didn't want to know about it. So what happens if you're talking to a lady and you think you're doing real well and she starts to do this? Your course of action's obvious. Who else has a question? Here's a question over here.
Alan, can body language be used in a place like a court to detect whether someone's telling lies?
Can it be used in a court? In the United States now, it is being used in a court in two ways. One is to detect deceit in a witness, and secondly, the lawyers and solicitors are using it to select a jury. By making a brash statement to a potential jury about the innocence or guilt of the particular party, they then watch the body language of the potential jurors. Those who have decided he's guilty, if they show negative gestures, they move them out. Those who show open or positive gestures, they select them in. That gives the person who's been convicted a better chance of getting off. Other questions? Over here.
What does it mean when someone, when they speak to you, they put their hand on their mouth or they rub their chin or go like this?
Hand to face and chin rubbers. The chin rubbing gesture is probably the most interesting. If you're in selling or negotiating or dealing with other people and you need to know where they're at, this is one of the most valuable signals to look for. It goes back 1 million or so years to when the cave tribes would meet. All the elders would sit around, men and women stroking their beards, making a decision. Now, if we asked all the fellas here today to make a decision, what do you think about this, fellas? Most of them would reach straight for their chin and start to make this stroking gesture, as though they had an imaginary beard. Now, most girls do the same, but the gestures are not quite as bold as that. They're more petite and go like this, like they've got a little goatee beard. Now, in a selling situation, of course, this is invaluable information, because if you ask me, would I like A or B, ask me if I'd like A or B.
Would you like A or B?
Well, now, I am going through the decision-making process. You shouldn't interrupt me when I'm going through this process. The gestures that follow this will signal my decision. A or B, let me think. What have you got? Negative. I don't want either. If I say neither, you've got a fight on your hands. Now, a good salesperson would stop me at that point and say, now, just before you answer, let's go back and reconsider these main points. So this one is an evaluation signal. Do men do this at you often? Who has another question? Let's take one over this side. Yeah, this gentleman here.
Yeah, Alan, is it true that psychics are the only ones that can really read body language signals correctly?
That's a good question. Somebody who has an innate and inborn ability to decode body signals can pose as a psychic. Because if I had an incredible ability to decode body signals, from your signals, unconsciously I could figure out what you were thinking and how you were feeling, and I could relate it to you and call myself a psychic. In fact, I'm not a psychic. I'm a good salesperson, not a psychic. There is a difference. Question up the top here.
I'm the sales game and I meet a lot of people who wear jewellery and so on. Does jewellery represent anything like rings or things around your neck and so on?
Yes, jewellery is very revealing. Anybody who has anything artificial, such as cigarettes, jewellery, toupees, false teeth, glasses, all have their own special sets of signals. Probably the most significant, if you're in the selling business, is a watch signal. Now, if we had a 5-year-old child in the audience and the child wanted to look at his watch, how would he do it? By the time the child's become a teenager, he's learnt that that is not very nice. So he looks at his watch like this. Now, when the child gets to be an adult, and most of us here tonight are adults, and they're at a meeting where there's a boring speaker, you want to get a look at your watch, but you don't want to look obvious. Here's the one you'll see. That is primarily a watch-peeking gesture. Now, if you're in the middle of selling and you think you're doing really well, all of a sudden a customer does this at you. What's your course of action?
Stop.
Well, you better stop and say he's looking at his watch. Why?
Obviously something I said he's not believing.
He's either not buying, not believing. You better stop and maybe ask a question. Well, what do you think? Now, people who are in the 40-plus age bracket don't look at their watch like that, because they've come from a generation where you were taught to be polite. regardless of how boring a person may be. So if we've got some 40-year-olds here tonight and there's no clock on the wall, if you think this is boring, I wonder how long till we finish, here's what they do. And we've put on boring speakers in front of groups. Good evening and welcome again to Body Language. Now tonight we're going to take a look at what people do at parties when they meet each other and check each other out. We're going to analyse handshakes and what some of the hidden meanings are you find behind them. And we're going to introduce you to talk language, where we're going to show you how to read between the lines what people actually say when they're trying to put it over you. Now we know with human communication that when you're face to face, there's three things you use to put your message over. Now the first thing is words. That's what you actually say. And we can take that and write it on a piece of paper. The second thing is the way you sound, what we call the vocal element. And the third thing is the way you gesture, the way you move, and the way you look, what's commonly called body language. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. When you had the last conversation with somebody, which would have been only a short time ago, what percentage of the time do you think you would have been relying on what you actually said, that is the words, to make your message go across? What do you think? Who thinks it'd be at least, say, 50% of the impact was on words? Put your hand up. Who thinks it'd be less than 50% for words? Anybody doesn't think? Let's take the second element, the way you sound, the tone of voice. Who thinks that accounts for at least, say 50% of how effective you are? Okay. Who thinks it'd be less than 50? Okay, body language, the way you look, gesture and move. Who thinks that accounts for at least, say, 50%? Who thinks it'd be less than 50? Okay. Studies show that face-to-face, what you actually say, that is the words themselves, account for 7 to 10% of your impact. In other words, people don't listen to what you say. They just don't listen. They act on what they think they hear you mean and what they think you want by the way you look. Now let me demonstrate that. What's your first name, please?
James.
Give him a big hand, James. Come over here. Always got to get the tallest person in the room. Okay, I'm going to ask you 10 questions, James. Nobody's ever got 10 out of 10 right. Listen to the questions, listen to the answers, and answer them yourself in your own mind. And this shows people don't listen to what you say, they act on what they think is going on and what they think you mean. 10 questions from 0 to 10. Here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Question number 1. What's your full name?
James Irving France.
Correct. Never make the first question you ask somebody new one to which they don't know the answer. If they say, I don't know, they feel dumb. Question number 2. Here we go, right through to 10. This tie is made of silk. Spell silk.
S-L-I-K.
Not close. What do cows drink?
Milk.
Now sit down, they drink water. Sorry.
Little cows drink milk.
Little cows don't drink milk. Now, all right, be fair. Be honest. Who thinks cows drink milk? Put your hand up. Come on, be honest. Who thought the answer was milk? Come on. Yeah, that's your first response. Your second response is little cows drink milk. You try to rationalise why you're an idiot, correct? Want a second go? Come up, I'll give you a second.
Okay. Glutton for punishment.
Right. Now, so far you got your name right. All right. Here we go. Now this time I'm going to gesture and move. How many animals of each species did Moses take on the ark?
Oh, 2.
Sit down, it wasn't Moses, it was Noah. Now here's the problem you've got dealing with people. Most people think cows drink milk and Moses had an ark. That's the problem you got dealing with them. Now the follow-up to the subject body language was this book called Talk Language. Now what I did with this was to analyse the 20 to 30% impact of what you say and the 7 to 10% of words. And what we discovered was that in the English language there are 550 cliches. Now cliche is pre-packaged words. You learn these things. And you use them when you want to cover up what you're really thinking. Now a couple of simple examples of these can be seen at places like airports. So I flew on a plane today. Now the fear of flying, which is in the book of lists, is listed at number 8. We don't like flying in aeroplanes. Now the fear of dying is number 7. Anybody know the number 1 fear of Western man? Public speaking. Speaking in front of a group. You'd rather die 7 times more and go up on a plane than come up here right now and talk to the group, is what that means. Now even though the fear of flying is number 8, when you go to any airport, they do and say things with the cliches they use that encourage you never to fly again. Now they've spent millions to get you out there in the first place. Here you are, you drive out to the airport. You're reassuring yourself it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And as soon as you get to the airport, what do they put there for you to see? Right across the top of the airport, 25 feet high in most countries, the word terminal. Now think about this. You think cows drink milk, you think Moses had an ark. What do you think happens to your body when you see the word terminal? What do you think of? You think of you're dead, finished. And then you get on the planes and they still give first-time flyers impossible things that you can't do. Such things as put your seat back forward. Now which way does it go if you don't fly? If they're late, they reassure you by saying, we should have you in the air momentarily. Split second, right? We're going to be landing shortly. Now how long is the runway going to be? Shortly. Now one thing you won't hear on Australian Airlines, or Ansett Airlines, is the following cliche that you'll hear on most international airlines. They say, ladies and gentlemen, in the event of a depressurization. Now what do you imagine is going to happen to you? What do you think? Yeah, okay, the windows have popped out. The plane is plummeting towards the ground in a death plunge. This is what you picture. But they say, no need to worry because these masks will appear. And during this death plunge, with the windows gone, place the mask over your mouth and breathe normally. One airline used to say there'd be no smoking in the rear. The best one of all, you hear this on most airlines. I can remember one night in turbulence, we were bouncing around the sky trying to find a hole to park this crate. And we're going down like this and people were scared and people were sick and the captain came on to reassure us by saying, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry about the turbulence, but I can assure you this will be our final approach. Now here's the way it works with cliches. I first became aware of this when I heard the following conversation between a fruit shop owner and a 5-year-old boy. The 5-year-old boy had said to the fruit shop owner, what are all those red berries? And he pointed to all these red berries. The answer was, son, they're not red berries, they're blackberries. They're only red because they're green. Now this is the sort of language that we're dealing with. Now here's the way it works. I decide I'm not going to tell you the truth because I can't afford to tell you the truth, or I don't want to tell you the truth, or I don't think you should know. So because I'm going to tell a lie, my brain says, now wait on, let's have some of these cliches that'll try to be as honest as we're going to lie. And I'll start popping some of the following statements if I'm going to lie to you. They include, well, to be perfectly honest. Now, how many times have you heard somebody say to you, look, to be perfectly honest, and you know here inside that they're not telling you the truth? They say things like, well, look, to be frank, meaning I haven't been frank up until now. Look, in all sincerity, and then they stick the boot into you. And the granddaddy of all these is with all due respect. Now, what does that mean? You've got no respect, have they? Now, with all due respect, there's a softness. If I said, for example, Derek, you're a fool. He might come and belt me, and I can't afford to take that chance. So now I use a softener. I say, Derek, let me say, with all due respect, mate, that you're a fool. Now he starts thinking, well, at least Alan respects me for being a fool. So I've used a softener to manipulate it. Now, if it wasn't for these cliches, most politicians would not have much to talk about, am I right? Because anywhere between 50% and 100% of a political speech can be cliches. Now, some of the favourites include one that means, I resent that question. The cliche is, with a smile, let me make one point perfectly clear. At this point in time is a good one, because that means 5 minutes from now it's not true anymore. It's only at this point in time. Obviously is a good one. Now, obviously means if you don't agree with me, you're a fool, and clearly covers the same thing. One that's a joiner, joins together irrelevant thoughts that don't have anything to do with each other. And having said that, let me say this. Yeah. There's a very clever one that goes this way. I would say this, and that's good because you're not saying it. Therefore, there's no liability attached to it. You never did say it. There's no promise you ever will, but you would. You say to a leading political figure with the government, what's your opinion of the opposition leader? You might get the following response. Well, that's a good point you've raised there, Ellen. Let me make one point perfectly clear with respect to that statement. Having said that, I want to say this now and make it clear to all concerned, so there's no misinterpretation of the facts of what's been stated here today. That obviously, as I understand it to be the case, and don't quote me as having said that, but I believe and always will believe, with all due respect to the man and the question you've raised, and that question is, why did you want to know this, correct? What do you got? Nothing! But it doesn't matter. 60 to 80% of your impact is the way you look and move. 20 to 30% is the way you sound. Provided you gesture and move, you can get away with almost anything these days. Here's a collection of some of the more popular cliches that you might hear. In other words, I want to tell you, we did not repeat. Did not, but obviously.
Obviously, that goes without saying.
And I want to say this to you.
I think it's fair to say there's nothing I can say.
Well, let me just say, no, that is not true at all.
I think you'll find that,
We still believe
and I feel fairly confident,
and always will believe.
the reality is, and I again say,
Well, clearly the government's in breach of the policy.
But obviously.
we have, for the time being,
A considerable sympathy.
At this point in time.
We hope to reach a START agreement this year.
let me first put the position as concisely as possible.
I've got no doubt that we will have probably amongst the lowest rates of tax in the world without a consumption tax.
Goodness only knows, I can't understand it.
I don't think it's appropriate to speculate at this stage on that.
In other words,
I want to say, no, it's not dead. Obviously, there's a desire to discuss this issue.
in other words,
Put it this way, I'll be around a long time, and I guess you'll be looking for me much more than you're looking for me now.
Now that last man, Sir Joe, never used any of the cliches in talk language. He used fillers. Now a filler is where someone puts a microphone in front of you. You must open your mouth and some noise has got to come out before you say what you want to say. Remember, he had three favourite fillers. Remember what they were? My goodness gracious me. Don't you worry about that. And the last one was, you mark my words. Now, you'd say to Sir Joe, what do you think about the government? Oh, you mark my word, don't you worry about that. My goodness me, they're crooks! So he calls a spade and axe, hits you on the head with it. I'm going to show you now a collection of cliches that he made up himself. We couldn't understand it, maybe you can.
Made them move faster than a bee in a bottle. You mark my words, you mark my words. You can't chase two hares. You either leave one and lose the other. Everything's going ordinary, according to the way it ought to go, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not interested in talking of that silly nonsense. Because they shoot themselves in the feet and they shoot their own ship. They don't like me, they hate me. Just to take one look at them, you could sum them up. I wouldn't have them to tie up my shoestring. Goodness me. Yeah, you haven't woken up yet. I've been there, I'm there now, I know. Well, the point is, there's no need to go into that today. Go and jump into the lake. I do not accept any blame. I never intend to, I never have to. You mark my words. Don't try and walk with a foot on each side of a barbed wire fence. It's pretty uncomfortable.
Everybody take your right hand and hold it in front like this. And hold it across on top of the left knee of the person beside you. The left knee. Now put it on the top of their knee. Rub it just back and forth a few times. Okay, cut. What you were doing then was using the ancient speaking tools of the hands. This is what we used to speak with before we learned to verbally speak. And you were placing it in an intimate zone. Now there are certain places you can and can't touch people. Depends on your relationship. Depends on whether they're male or female. Let me demonstrate this. Can I ask you to come up here, please? Now, with a woman, for example, we know that studies show women touch each other from the hand to the point of the elbow is the prime touching zone, so they'll talk like this. The secondary touching zone's from there to there, and women can touch each other on the face. Okay, thank you. Come back up here, James. Oh. Yeah. So far you got your name right.
Spelling's a bit rough there.
That's it, do you jack it up, that's a good boy. Okay. One thing we know about research with men, particularly English-speaking men, the only place you can touch them as a man is between the elbow and the shoulder. That's it. Now, if, for example, he was a friend of mine, I could say he's a friend of mine and I really like him. I can touch him there and there. I couldn't say he's a friend of mine and I really like him. I'm not allowed to do that. All right, now where do you touch somebody you've just met, a stranger, who you want to impress and get on with? Well, we know from studies that waiters who touch patrons between the elbow and the shoulder when they're explaining a wine menu or when they're explaining the food and asking how do they like the service get 5 to 10 times the tips of the waiters who don't touch at all. We know that librarians who ask the following question, you will have the book back on time, won't you? When they touched in this neutral touching zone from here to here, got 4 times the response rate than those who didn't touch at all. So this is a neutral touching zone. Okay, how do you spell milk before you go?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that.
He's not going. What about touching on top of the head? How do you feel when someone does this to you? Now, head touching is a very demeaning gesture, and people still do it to kids. There are only certain people who are allowed to touch us on the head in English-speaking society. Now, never touch Chinese on the top of the head. It's a religious insult. Have a look at this. You'll see people who can touch. Now, this man has the authority to touch. Touching on the head for blessing is a very ancient gesture. Now, it's something that we should avoid. Now, what happens when politicians start doing this sort of affair? They seem to be under the impression that everybody they touch will give them a vote. One touch, one vote. Two touches on the one head, maybe you get 3 votes. But all politicians seem to do this everywhere. The more votes you want, the more you touch. And when you're really desperate for a vote, you can always go for the donkey vote. Something else we know about touching is this thing called a handshake. Hello? 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 You're allowed to touch on the hands when you meet somebody. Now, one thing you'll learn about hand touching is this. When men meet other men, hello there, single-hander, single-hander for this man, single-hander for this man. Now I see a woman I like. She gets a double-hander. Again, single. G'day, mate. Hello there. G'day, mate. Have a look at the screen. Here is somebody who has a reputation of being a ladies' man. Single-hander for Joe. Single-hander for this fella. Joe doesn't even want to know about that. Now, what's Bob Hawke when he meets Mr. Schultz in America? Single-hander. Now he meets his wife. Hello, darling, double-hander. Through the front door he comes, meets the woman in blue. She gets a double-hander. Another man who gets a single-hander, and he's not even looking at him. He's looking at the woman who gets a double-hander. Okay, what happens if you're a well-known person like royalty or politician? You're meeting the crowds, and all of a sudden someone's got you in a handshake and won't let you go. How do you get away? What sort of technique do you or don't you have? Here's a couple of very well-known identities. Let me show you what they do. Now, Andrew Peacock's never had a technique for getting away. He tries to break with his left hand. Watch this. No, she's not letting him go. You're staying right there, fella. So all he does is try to walk off and take her with him. Now, here is an expert in handshake release techniques. He's been locked in this one for about 90 seconds. Now, what Charles does, he changes the subject and pretends to pull his hand out and point over in the distance. Changes the subject, pulls the hand out, and, oh, it's over there. Now, this next scene, this woman's got hold of Bob Hawke's coat tail. Now, he knows he's trapped and she's not going to let him go. But he's got to move on. Now, notice the solid brick wall behind them. Now, someone has said, move on. Now, his first strategy is to try to push her forward to break the grip. Now, I want you to watch behind her as they come forward. Watch what she does as he pushes her. Here comes her left hand, got him. Now, her right hand, got him in a lock. He tries to do a sudden right-hand turn. She does a right-hand turn with him and they both walk into the red brick wall. Now, it's also possible to learn someone's occupation through the style of handshake they've got. Can I ask you to come up here for a second, please? Thank you. No problem. For example, we found that research with the railways discovered they've got their own special handshake, as do the Sawmillers Association. Just last week we were talking with the Milk Marketing Board, the dairy farm. Give them a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Now, most people ask questions, but most people don't ask the right sort of questions. Here is the way a typical interview might go at a party or a business function. What's your first name, please?
Yvonne.
Yvonne? Yvonne, what is it that you do?
I'm a receptionist.
Receptionist, And how long have you been a receptionist?
3 months.
3 months, You like it?
Yeah, it's great.
Think you might stay at it?
Yes.
Think you could stay where you are or move to somewhere else?
I have to stay where I am, yes.
Pretty good job then, is it?
Yes.
Great day, isn't it? Now, as humorous as that may seem, most people ask questions like that. They're called closed-ended questions, and the conversation goes nowhere. Now, closed-ended question either gives a yes or no answer, and then the conversation dies, or it gives a simple numerical answer, like how long have you been there? 3 months, then it dies. Or sometimes we tell them the answer and the question. We're one of the only countries that does that. We say, how you going? Good? How's your father? All right? Now, closed-ended questions make the conversation die, but even the experts ask closed-ended questions. Here's 2 interviews. The first interview has 6 closed-ended questions and the conversation dies. The second one has 13. Have a look at this. Even the professionals do it.
Hello.
Hello, is that you, Marianne?
Yep.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
You having a good time?
Yep.
You got any idea who this might be?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Johnny Young.
Hi, sweetheart. You having a nice day in Brizzy?
Yeah.
Great. And you'd like a request on Young Talent Time?
Yeah.
Now, in this interview, we're talking about turtle eggs. She breaks all the rules in this. Watch.
So there's egg on the end of the stick?
Yeah.
Right. And how many eggs will you find in a hole?
Oh, 40, sometimes 30.
Do you often dig for eggs and find that someone's been there first, like the dingoes?
Yeah.
Does that happen a lot?
Yeah.
How long do you boil them for?
Oh, it's half an hour.
Half an hour?
Yeah.
It's a long time. Do they come out hard or
Yeah,
soft?
soft.
Like a chicken egg?
No, soft. It's cooked.
So you just boil them. Would you eat them with anything or just straight?
Straight.
Do the turtles lay eggs all the year round on the beach here?
Yeah.
Is there a time when they've been there too long and they're no good to eat?
No.
You eat them all the time until they hatch, can you? Okay, that'll probably do.
It's sad, but it's true. That poor fellow never had a chance to answer the questions because he had 13 closed-ended questions. The best type of questions to ask to get a conversation going are open-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions start with how, in what way, or tell me about it. Okay, Evan, you're a receptionist, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, how did you get started as a receptionist?
How to get started? There's an opportunity going in the New Westgate complex, and I took it.
Yeah. And then you can see what's happened.
Yeah,
I've thrown in a bridge. I've started with the question, how did you get started as a receptionist? Now, normally when you ask that question, you follow up with this type of very valuable movement. And you rub your hand on your chin. This encourages people to keep talking. And once they stop, you throw in a bridge. And the bridge can be, and then a very effective one is meaning. Now, if you can't think of anything to say, just say meaning, then it's their problem. Now, the good thing about questions, it gives you control of the conversation. Whoever is asking the questions is running and controlling the conversation. So what happens if someone's questioning you and they're controlling you and you don't want to get away, you don't want to do it, you want to get away from it? Well, let me show you how the professional question escapers handle it. Have a look at this. These are some of the techniques. Walk near a helicopter or a plane and pretend you can't hear. Very good technique. You just can't hear the embarrassing questions they're asking. Have laryngitis is good. Or you can just turn the other way and wave in the distance. He's waving here to fictitious people. Waving to his own security men. You can put it off till later.
I'll tell you next week. I'll tell you next week. All the best.
You can turn your back on them.
Oh, well, I mean, events have taken their course, haven't they? I think I've said all that I need to say over the past few days about it.
You can try and explain it and be submissive.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the end of the matter. I won't be responding to any further questions on the issue.
Read the subtitles, this is self-explanatory.
I don't mind on my favourite occasion. When you do start talking down with this, we have those words, okay?
Try this.
How rude. Next question.
Mind the power, wash it off.
Do you think you've been unfairly treated?
No, I don't think I've been unfairly treated at all.
Mr. Brown,
Why did you do it, Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown, why are you so angry about the press about it? You silly little girl. Mr. Brown, why are you so angry with the press about it?
I think you're a team of girls, that's why.
That was truth, but here's an example of blatant aggression.
Now wait a minute. Oh, no, you can't. Can you let me finish? Now, the rest of them want to hear that. Just contain yourself, will you? Good. Well, if you find it difficult, just go away, because the others want to hear. If you can't have your difficulty by yourself. Good. Okay.
The best way to handle being asked a question is ask back a question. So if someone says, tell me about such and such, you say, that's a good question. Why did you ask me that at this point in time? Nod your head and you've got the control. Now, everybody loves to go to parties. They're great fun. We have a good time. We meet interesting people. They're also a terrific place for you to check each other out. So that's why at parties you see lots of preening. That is, if she likes him and he likes her, the bodies start doing certain things. For example, in the case of a woman, if a woman likes you fellas, you get lots of hair touching. Now, there's a relationship between how much she likes you and how much she touches her hair. So if she's not touching her hair, maybe you're bombing out. Now, you've got to be careful you don't take one signal and say it's got a conclusive meaning. Like if she's trying to arrange her hair and you jump in with the wrong open-ended question, I mean, you're in trouble. Now, with men, you'll see preening as well, but it depends on how old they are as to how it looks. If they're, for example, under the age of 25, you'll see the both thumbs in the belt. How long have you been at this party, darling? Real subtle stuff. If they're over, say, 30 to 35, the older male, and if he's got a tie on, you'll see lots of this sort of thing happening. Now, if he's over 40, you don't see thumbs in the belt or ties, you see this one. Thumbs go on the side of the pants. They come up around the front, down, like this, and they stand there doing this. Let's now go to a party, see what we can see. There's two types of conversations you'll see here. First of all, there's the verbal conversation, what we say. Then there's the body language conversation, which adds up to 60 to 80% of what we actually feel and think. Now look at this. See what the man on the right's doing to this woman? He's wiping imaginary pieces of dust off her shoulder. This is a territorial gesture. He's claiming her as his property for the benefit of that other man. What he's saying is, back off, fella. Now notice they're all smiling, but look at the arms. A lot of aggression, a lot of hostility. She's holding a wine glass with two hands, and she's standing between them. She hasn't decided which way to go yet. Now we have bookends. Now the fellow in blue was sitting like this first. This other woman, this young girl, wants to get his attention. So she preens her hair and copies his body language. Smart move. She's also giving him a very good dose of the subtle shoe. Now the girlfriend in the middle gets a feeling that she's not doing so well. Very effective strategy. And this next scene, you'll see the man on the left has hooked his thumb in his belt. Look at that. The guy on the right is starting to use aggression signals. See the finger? Now look at the woman. She's positioned herself so she's now facing the guy on the left. She's almost cut the other guy out. Now the guy on the right gets a feeling he's bombing out, but he doesn't know quite how. The man on the left is making his moves. Here's a couple of clutch displays. They're done for the benefit of that woman. Now what's this? What's the subtle preening signal? They're talking business. Hello, darling. Now this woman is feeling pretty cool about it. She's using the most confident, powerful position a woman can sit in. This is a good one for business women, I'll tell you that. Leg twine, steeple position, pinstripe suit. She's very powerful. She knows she's got these guys on toast. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, good hip action on the guy on the left. Now look at the woman in the middle's doing now. Look at this. Oh, she's really responding to that. Yeah, the guy on the right, he's almost behind her now. All he can do, because he's losing out, is use aggression signals. But look at the smile on their face. Watch his finger come out and threaten while he's smiling. Now, something else you'll see a lot of at parties is fellas wearing even. But we also know that a man with facial hair, a moustache or beard, outperforms the clean-shaven one in his ability to meet and be successful with women. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 10 stages of courtship. First 4 stages are, number 1 is eye contact. You meet someone's gaze, you hold it for a split second longer than is acceptable, sends a powerful signal. If that works, you go to stage 2, which is position. You get near enough to be able to go to stage 3, which is physical touch. Stage 4 is ask a leading question to test the water. Now you're going to meet Lee. Let me tell you about Lee. He was a quiet, introverted sort of guy, clean-shaven, 5'5". Never had much success with women at all. So the first thing we said to Lee was, grow a beard. Your chances go up twice just by putting the hair on your face. Now he grew a beard. It wasn't exactly what we had in mind. I've got to tell you that in advance. But nonetheless, it was a beard. Let me show you what happened. This is Lee. Stage 1, eye contact, achieved. Stage 2, position. This allows him to go to stage 3. Watch what he does. He's read the book, learned the rules, contact. Now, if you want to go to stage 3 of courtship with anybody you meet, get your hand out in front early. He holds it longer than is normally acceptable too. Everybody you meet at functions, get your hand out. You immediately get the access to stage 3 of courtship. Because if you don't shake hands, you've got to spend a bit of time figuring out how you're going to touch them without being formal. Now, you would have noticed that Lee was not in a good position. He was too far opposite. So his next strategy was to manoeuvre around to get beside her. Here's the way it went. Now he's going for stage 4. Notice where he's touching. Between the shoulder and the point of the elbow, the neutral touching zone. Now he's got to get that beard across and give her a good smell of it. He asked the open-ended question. Let's see what happens. The beard is working. Now what this means, fellas, now I'm going to show you what happens if you speed up the courtship process. If you go too fast, or if you skip some of the stages. Now, if you skip some of the stages, they reckon you're fast. You're going to meet a woman. My mind's wandering, my tongue's following it. You're going to meet a man that practically every woman will identify with. Have a look at this. Every party has a fella that looks a bit like this. This is a man called, and that's not him, a man called the party sleaze. This woman's about to meet him. Here he comes. He's got the compulsory white shoes and pants. He's got all the adornments that these guys wear. Now he doesn't have a beard, but he does have a hairy chest. He's got the compulsory medallion. Now hairy chests are only half as good as beards. He's now going for stage 1 eye contact, but she's not looking at him. That makes him impatient, so what do these guys do? Well, he skips stage 1, goes straight for position, which he does subtly. Stage 3, contact. Double-hander. Now he goes for intimate touch. Have a look at his hands. How many fellas have you seen talking to women with low-cut dresses who do this? This is the double group position. Now he's got to get the hairy chest over so she can smell the scents in it. Here comes the question. What this shows, you might have a hairy chest, but it's not as good as a beard. Now, the studies show that in the first 4 minutes of seeing you, people form up to 90% of their opinion about you. That is, when they lay eyes on you, they pull out a big rubber stamp, and they wait for 4 minutes, and then they stamp you on the forehead with the stamp as to who they think you are. and they may take a long time, if ever, to change their opinion. This is called stereotyping. People do this to us, and we do this to other people. Now, stereotyping is important for the movies because, see, in a 1-hour lifestyle movie, for example, if you didn't know exactly who each of the characters were by the way they looked, you wouldn't know how the movie ran. They couldn't tell the whole story in that 60-minute period. So stereotyping is what we do to people. Now, let me show you how this works. I'm going to get some people out of the audience. Can I ask you? Now, please give them a big hand as they come up. Can you come up here, please? Now have a look at these 5 fellas. If you know any of them, I want you to forget you know them. Pretend you've never seen them before. Let's have a bit of a look at them now. Can I just ask you to undo your tie a little bit there, if you will, and just undo your top button. Now let me say right now that these 5 men have no idea what's about to happen. Okay? And notice we have 5 standing in the Prince Charles position as well, hand behind the back. Look at that. Okay, let's just have a look at this. We'll just undo this a bit more. Over your shoulder. Okay. Let me tell you what happens with a cowboy movie. Cowboy movie has 5 stereotypes to make it work. First of all, there's always a good guy. Tell me about the good guy.
White hat.
White hat. What else?
Clean cut.
Clean shaven. Anything else? Yeah, he's got a good smile. He can sing. Clean clothes. Always walks into town with both thumbs in his belt because the women love it, right? There's always a villain. Otherwise, you couldn't have a cowboy movie. Now, to keep them apart, you've always got a sheriff. There's always a banker. I've never seen a cowboy movie that didn't have a town drunk. Now what I want you to do with these 5 men, by applause, is to cast them into their roles in the cowboy movie as you think they fit it. We're going to start by looking for the good guy. You ready? Is that the good guy? No. Is that the good guy? No. Is that the good guy? No. Is that the good guy? Yes. Congratulations, come forward. Back there. Have you been the good guy, you'll get a copy of Talk Language because all good guys read those type of books. Okay, now we're looking for the villain. You ready? Is this the villain? No. Is this the villain? Yes. Sorry to say, can you just move along the end there, Dan, if you will, if you come and stand here. Because you're the villain, you'll get a copy of a book I think all villains need, which is called Everything Men Know About Women. Truth of the matter? Absolutely nothing. Okay. Moving you guys. Come on, don't be bashful. 3 remaining positions. The sheriff, the banker, and the town drunk. Looking now for the banker. Is that the banker? Yes! Because you're the banker, you'll get a copy of Right Language by myself and Paul Dunn. Come and stand up the end here, if you wouldn't mind, please, as the banker. Make this next choice very carefully. This next choice could affect the self-image of one of these 2 men. For one of these men is the sheriff, and one is the town drunk. Looking now for the sheriff. Is that the sheriff? Yeah. Is that the sheriff? Yeah. Is that the town drunk? Sit down, fellas. You can keep your hats. Let's analyse some of the basic things that happened in that exercise. First of all, we know from studies when you have a clean-shaven face on a man or a woman, you've got the good guy. Now again, this is because signals transmitted from the face are covered up by facial hair. The minute you put whiskers on a man's face, moustache or a beard, without exception, you've got the villain. Now, does that mean then, for those of you who have moustaches and beards, you've got to rush home and shave it off? Yep. No, it doesn't mean that. What it means, you need to be aware of in the first 4 minutes of meeting someone new, that you will be stamped as the villain and treated that way unless you do something to compensate it. Such as smile, talk and touch between the shoulder and the elbow, which is the neutral zone. Say something, touch by handshaking. If you're introduced and you put your hands in your pocket and say nothing in the first 4 minutes, you've had it, you've been stereotyped. When you put glasses on someone, studies show that you are perceived as intelligent, studious, serious, trustworthy and reliable. So you've got the banker. Now, a simple strategy, if you need to look like that in a work environment, get glasses that have solid dark frames on them. That makes you look more intelligent, more studious. I'm not going to help you to the town drunk. Matter of fact, I better give the town drunk a special prize. Now, when you get grey hair on a man, or no hair if he's bald, those two body signals send high status. So you've got the sheriff. The minute you've got someone with their clothes that don't match, and all we did with the town drunk was put his tie over his shoulder, undo his belt, you've got the town drunk. That means if you go to meet anybody for the first time and your clothing doesn't match, it's not coloured right, or it's not neat, they're going to think, in effect, here comes a town drunk. We're going to now see how perceptive as a group you are. I'm going to ask you to rate and evaluate me. Now, you've all had about 10 minutes tonight to have a good look at me. Let me ask you the following questions. I'd like your answers. Do you believe that I'm more introverted or more extroverted in personality? What do you think? Who thinks I'm more extroverted? Put your hand up. Okay. As a kid, did I come from a large city area or do I come from a small country town somewhere? What do you think? Who thinks small country town? What's your criteria for that?
The fact that you're extroverted.
The fact that I'm extroverted. Means I come from the country. Good clear mind, this fellow, not all clubbed up with the facts. Who thinks I come from the city? Who thinks I come from a metropolitan area? Yes. Okay. What's your criteria for that?
You'd have to survive.
Have to survive. All right. Do I come from a large family, lots of kids, or a small family, just a couple of kids? Small. Who thinks small family? Who thinks large family? Yeah. What's your criteria, please, for large family?
Because you're extroverted.
I'm extroverted. I had to fight to get above the crowd. That makes sense, all right. Am I married or single? Now, single includes separated and divorced. What do you think?
Single.
Single? Who thinks I'm single? What's your criteria, please, for that?
No ring or anything.
No ring, yeah. Anything else? What's that? I look happy. Okay. Whereabouts are you from? From Melbourne, sorry?
From Melbourne.
I heard what you said, I'm just sorry. Who thinks I'm married? Who thinks I'm married? Okay, majority. What's your criteria for that?
Grey hair.
Grey hair. I'm working for a living, all right? If I was married, which the majority of you seem to think is the case, to what sort of person would you expect to find me married?
Woman? Blonde.
A woman. That was good, a woman. Assuming it was a woman, Mr. Town Drunk. Would you expect her to be more extroverted or more introverted? Introverted. Who thinks she's introverted? What's your criteria? Can't get a chance to get a word in. Opposites attract. She's introverted. Is she more blonde or more brunette and toning? Blonde. Who thinks she's blonde? Who thinks she's more darker colours, more brunette? Okay. She's shorter or taller generally than me? Who thinks she's shorter? She's a short, introverted brunette. Okay. If I was married to this short, introverted brunette, do we have any children? How many? Two. Who thinks two or three? Two. Okay. High school or primary school? Bit of both?
That'd be a bit of both.
University. Okay. Primary school. My office environment, is it fast-paced or slow pace? Who thinks it's fast? What sort of location is it in? Central business. Who thinks a central business district? Who thinks somewhere remote on the beach or in the country? Nobody. Okay. Do I work long or short hours? Long hours. What sort of sports, hobbies, and recreation do I have? None. Competitive squash, tennis, anything else? Golf, squash, tennis, some sort of a ball sport, is that roughly the idea? What sort of car do I drive? Porsche. Who thinks a BMW or Porsche or Jag? Some sort of imported European sporty car, okay. What colour? Red. Red or blue BMW style. Okay. How old am I roughly? Who thinks I'm 35 to 40? Put your hand up. Who thinks I'm 40 to 45? Anybody think I'm over 45? Anybody think I'm under 35? There's a free copy of body language going on there. Okay then, too late for that. Well, if you think I'm an extroverted fellow who came from the city as a kid, from a large family, lots of kids where I had to compete, I'm married to a short introverted brunette. We have 2 to 3 children in primary school. I have a fast office environment. I work long hours. My office environment's in a central business district near the city. I play squash, tennis, or some type of a ball sport, which I get there in my blue or red BMW. I'm aged 40 to 45. Out of 16 criteria, you got 13 wrong. 13 wrong. Not a very perceptive bunch, are you? Well, question. What? You want to know the answer, huh? Okay, question. If you and I get on really well, does it really matter what the answers are? In reality, does it matter what the answers are? It doesn't, because you did exactly to me just then what you did to the other 5 fellas before. You brought out a rubber stamp and you stamped me and stereotyped me based on what you think you see. Now, I've got to let you in on a secret. I know you think that way, because I'm dressed tonight in a classic number 5 package that allows you to think that way. In fact, when I put this number 5 package on, I knew, walking in front of you today, that you would think I was an extroverted fellow from the city with a large introverted, short introverted fat wife. BMW playing golf. I mean, golf ruins a nice walk as far as I'm concerned. I know you think that, because I dressed myself and packaged to create that illusion. Let me tell you how I'm packaged. I'm packaged tonight in number 5 high credibility clothing. 5 credibility points is the most you can get, all the way down to 1. You have no credibility in the first 4 minutes. Number 5 for a man or a woman is dark blue or dark grey pinstripe. I have a number 5 shirt which is white cotton, and IBM led the study showing that a white shirt in business for a man or a woman is 40% more believable than a colour. I have a striped military tie, number 5, gives me impact. I have lace-up shoes, black leather. Now, women prefer lace-up shoes on men, shows a sign of intelligence. You can do your shoes up. I also have a number 5 watch, which is plain gold face, ordinary gold band or leather band. It doesn't do very much, not very useful at all. It doesn't go 300 metres underwater or check the metre, as my social watch does, but it suits the number 5 impact. I also have socks all the way to the knee, number 5 socks. Name yourself. Number 5 haircut part of the left, clean-shaven face, because I'm aware of the villain impact. Here you have a walking number 5 package that lets you think I'm a 40 to 45-year-old BMW driving, short introverted, married with 3 children, etc. Now, number 5 suits have high credibility and authority in the first 4 minutes. Here are some of the best uses for this type of outfit. It's ideal for reading political statements where you need to have an impact. Looks like we've gone to the same sale, doesn't it? Now, here is Mr. Howard with the number 1 eyebrows, listening in a number 3 suit. The number 5s are ideal for going anywhere in the media where you need to establish impact very quickly. Reading the news, of course, you need to be believable. Weathermen don't wear number 5 because we don't believe them anyway. Address to the nation, it's perfect. It's also the perfect uniform for meeting overseas visitors. And if you look at these 2 leaders, whenever they met on 5 occasions, each time you will see they are wearing number 5 so that they can't be outdressed by each other. These fellas coming back from the Myers 50% off clearance sale. And here are the Hawks in their number 4s. The stripes are gone, dark blue, dark grey, no pinstripes, still very authoritative. The VHP boys in their number 5s. Here's number 3, a light grey. And when you wear a vest or a pocket handkerchief, you have a Playboy image in a number 5. Here is a number 3 with a number 5 tie. Got dressed in the dark, I'd say that. Number 5s also work very well for women. The only thing missing here is some type of a necktie. Now here's a man in a number 3 meeting another man in a number 5, and he's outdressed. Now, of course, you can see who's got the most presence, the man in the darker suit, Mr. Nakazomi. And Mr. Hawke's totally out of his depth in terms of colour codings here with his clothing. Here's a rare shot of Ronald Reagan in a number 1, light brown and tan. Notice he just hadn't got the impact. This is a big mistake. Now, I want you to, there's no presence. Contrast that to when the same man wears number 5. Look at that. He looks like he's in charge of the whole show. In a number 1, with all the colours of light brown that don't tone, there's just no presence. Here he's got tremendous presence. This guy's still got his pyjamas on from the morning before. Now, never ever go to any interview where you need credibility as a man or woman wearing these colours. Now, these colours, if you go in, your perception by other people, the way you come across in business will be something like this. Let me see a show of how many married men there are in this audience. Married men? Put your hands up. A couple of slow responses up the back there. Okay. 68. How many married women? Married women, hands? 36. All right. Now, can I see the hands of the single women? Single women? Just checking the action for a couple of the guys. How many of you at some point in your life have been or will go to an interview? Most of us. How many of you go to an interview as part of what you do for a living? Put your hand up. Now, there are some little techniques for making yourself more effective in an interview. There's some rights and some wrongs, and some strategies that will give you more presence, more credibility, and help you get what you want out of the interview. Now, you're going to meet 2 men going for the same interview. Now, this could be a job interview. It could be to see a bank manager to get a loan. It could be an interview to sell something or to persuade someone to go along with you. Nevertheless, it's an interview. Let's have a look at the first man going for the interview. Rule number 1 is get there early. Getting there early lets you park your car somewhere out of the rain. Also gives you a chance to get rid of any umbrellas or raincoats you've got. You don't have to rush. Never go to an interview carrying umbrellas, raincoats and so on. This is my twin brother Irving. Let's have a look at this fellow. He has the Salvation Army brown suit. His briefcase looks like he's going on holidays. He has a watch that shows he gets his films done at Kmart. He has long hair. He has facial hair and Veterans Affairs glasses. He's packaged for failure. Now, never enter anyone's office wearing this sort of thing. What's the umbrella? Now, the problem is he has no handshaking technique, so she's not sure whether he means to shake hands or not. How many of you have been through this? We'll forget about the mud on the carpet. Now, he's sitting directly opposite in the defensive position. That's the worst place he could sit. If he hadn't been there earlier, he would have noticed he had a speck of mud on the inside of his nose. He's only just seen it. Now, the trick is how to remove it. Now, never ever go to an interview unless your clothing is neat, in good repair. Otherwise, they're likely to think you're the town drunk. Now, because he's in the defensive position opposite, he's got to pull the chair up. Never touch the property on someone's desk. This represents territorial invasion. Now the problem you've got of leaning over someone's desk is they'll resent it, and if they resent that because it's invasion, they'll resent you. Not only that, you can get into all sorts of trouble. Don't ever touch the interviewer. As you probably suspect that this guy didn't get the job. He's also got his tie caught in his briefcase, you might have noticed. This is a clear example of no strategy, no technique, no preparation. Okay, well, let's have a look at another man going for the same job, the same selling interview, the same bank loan, and see what we could have done to make ourselves more effective. This is my other brother, Percy. Because he's there early, he can get rid of that raincoat. He's ahead of time with his number 5 watch. He can get rid of all that and walk into the interview with his hands free. First rule, get rid of anything in your hands apart from what you need. Let's have a look at this fella. He has the number 5 glasses, clean shaven face, number 5 hair, number 5 suit by Anthony Squires. He has a left-handed military stripe tie, briefcase in his left hand so he can shake hands with his right hand, doesn't have to fumble, and he has, of course, his standard lace-up shoes. When you enter an office, never hesitate, either walk straight in at the same speed or stop. You go straight in, see what he does with the handshake, telescope the handshake so when you get there, there's no fumbling. You know exactly what's got to happen. Good technique. Now she's invited him to sit in the competitive defensive position. Gets rid of things in his hand next. Next you mirror and copy the body language of the interviewer. Whatever they do, copy it. Now he's in the defensive position. He wants to get out of that position and get around beside her or get her around beside him. He knows if he hands over that information, he's going to be stuck in that seat, so now he talks about it in an attempt to encourage her out. Now he's going to try and ask her to come out from behind there to read the small print. Okay, now this time it's worked. Next strategy, again, continue the mirroring. Now when you do this mirroring, the other person gets a feeling there's something about you they kind of like. Sort of a rapport, because what they're seeing is you reflected in them. Now he can hand it over, and you probably guessed who made the sale, got the job and got the loan. He did. This is an example of having strategy, being prepared and getting on with everybody. His car's undercover downstairs in the car park basement. Gets his umbrella back. It was a prepared strategy, he knew exactly what he was doing. Now the other fella can't even find his car. Remember where he let it? Doesn't matter. Yeah, the police found it. Television advertising is designed to sell us, to convince us to go and buy products. And for a TV ad to be memorable, it's got to have a couple of elements in it. Now, one of the most popular elements in recent years is the introduction of annoying and irritating personalities. Because they annoy us so much, we love to hate them. You all remember Madge with her hand in the dishwashing liquid? Here's a collection of some of the ads that you really have loved to hate in the last decade.
Like that?
Well, this fella here has been getting under people's skin for some time. Dynamo Man. He's not on anymore, but he was memorable.
We'll show you what Dynamo gets out stains, others leave behind.
Now, of course, Mrs. Marsh has been dipping chalk into ink now for a long, long time.
This liquid gets into chalk to make teeth really tough.
Again, she irritates us, but we remember her and we buy.
Colgate Fluoride.
This next fella, you either love him or hate him. There's no two ways about it.
Right treatment.
Love him or hate him, you all recognise him and know him, right? And the advertisement that currently is getting under most people's skin. Here she comes in her balloon. Rita. No party would be complete without Rita coming with her margarine.
What do you reckon, love? Rita! stuff, great taste, great
The
value.
expression you love. You might hate the ad, but the Eater margarine has been one of the big success stories in marketing through the memorability of that ad. Now, other advertisements use catchy jingles or other visual techniques to get this to remember them. Here's some of the ones you love to love. Here's some visual techniques. Here's the number one. Got a few subtleties in it. The number one selling ad right now. I love the feeling that can be now, when man meets woman, their bodies go through certain physical changes if they are attracted to each other, and these physical changes are used to sell products. For example, if you meet somebody you really like, a couple of things happen. First, stomach goes in, your chest goes out, you become taller, and you walk with a more pronounced walk. A couple of other things happen. Your heart begins to beat faster, and this causes blood pressure to build, and the blood first of all starts to show in the cheeks, and you get this flushing. It also starts to pump to your ears, and your earlobes expand when you like somebody. Now, we're the only primate that has earlobes. None of them have it. And, of course, the earlobes expand. That's why it's an erotic area for kissing right here on the ear. The lips will also expand and become redder as blood pumps through. That's why pouting's so important. Makes you look sexy as a woman, not as a man. And also, the pupils of your eye will dilate. It'll get bigger when you see somebody that you really like. Now, let me show you how this works. We're going to build a face and show you how cosmetics market a woman's face. We start with a natural face, natural features, and the first thing we'll do, as most women will know, is to put on foundation, even out the skin tone. Next, by enlarging the eye display, we artificially make her look as though she's more interested in us because her eyes appear to be bigger, so we find her more attractive. It's the purpose of eye makeup. Now we add the capillaries flushing in the cheeks by putting on blusher. We enlarge the lip display next. We're the only primate with lips on the outside of the face. Monkeys and chimps have them inside. And the technique of lipstick is to show that she is excited because the blood's pulsing. Now at the end of last century, ladies of the night wore this on their cheeks, so now she's a sex symbol. We enlarge the earlobe display by putting dangling earrings, hang the hair in the face, and here is our final package ready for marketing. Now what we've done is taken very basic and natural features, such as this, and just by adding a body language signal like this, we change the whole impact of what you see. Interesting package, isn't it? Here is how those signals are used to market. Here is currently a top-selling poster. Now, if you look at this, the most noticeable feature is this great big pair of red lips. Right here. Now, if you look a little bit lower, you'll see there's quite a bit of exposed wrist. See this here? When a woman likes you, fellas, she will talk and expose her wrist. If she doesn't like you, the wrists are out of sight. Look across, you'll see some great big round shoulders. See this here? Round shoulder. Looking at a rounded shoulder has been an essential signal for women for about 2,000 years. The most noticeable thing, of course, is that great big round pair of dilated pupils that you can see right here. Now, to show you how important the dilated pupil is in marketing, Mother Nature has endowed these creatures. Aren't they beautiful? How would you feel about them if they looked like this? All right, here is a collection. Here's a collection of ads where body language signals have been used. See what you can find.
Real potato taste of smooth crinkle cut potato.
Yeah, we love this little fella, don't we? Yeah, there are the pupils. Here's the full face display.
Choose them because I'm here. Chocolatey caramel. Ooh.
Fantastic, is fantastic.
Now this next one is very, very clever. Watch for the constricting pupil. Now just in case you missed it, here it is again in slow motion. When we don't like something, our pupils constrict, they get smaller. See that? That's why you say someone's got beady little eyes. Very clever, isn't it? Now here are the lip and eye displays on a whole group of them. Great for selling videos. Now if you take the lipstick off someone and put a chisel in their mouth, they don't look so attractive, right? Now in courtship, the most powerful signal that's sent is intimate gaze. That's where you meet someone's gaze and you hold it longer than is socially acceptable. And intimate gaze is where you look from the person's eyes to below their chin. If you hold the gaze, it sends a very powerful signal. This next advertisement gets my personal body language award for the most creative body language signal. See how many signals you can see in this commercial.
Somewhere where she met, but luckily they're fairly rare. Somewhere where she met, if you know it, you ought to beware. Somewhere where she met, they're not playing the game at all fair. I'm sure they're wet, you know it just isn't fair. That's somewhere.
Doesn't that do something for you?